Hey y'all, this is Badass Black Single Mom back again, and I just wanted to address a few things that have been on my mind, that have always been on my mind actually, when it comes to what people think about Black single moms. And, weeks or actually I think a couple months ago at this point, I posted, I posted a vlog basically about the fact that it doesn't really matter what anyone thinks about Black single moms because we're no longer listening. And I still hold to that. I have stopped listening to people about what they want to tell me about my life as a Black single mother, because usually they're 1,000% wrong. And yeah, that's pretty much for that. I mean, I can't really say anything else more eloquent than that, than just to say that usually they're just 1,000% wrong. But I wanted to today bust 5 really annoying and persistent myths about Black single motherhood that I just really think need to die in 2019. They probably won't, because while they are myths for me and for many Black women, the ways in which Black women are consistently portrayed, just generally, whether you're a childless woman or you have children, the way we're portrayed is pretty terrible overall in media and also in our community. The way that we're seen by other members of our community is pretty deplorable. And if you didn't believe that Black women in general are under attack in our community, then I really just invite you to take a look at Surviving R. Kelly, that series. And not just at the series, but more importantly, look at people's reaction to that series and what they genuinely believe about women, about Black women, and about what we deserve and the things that we do and just who we are. And I noticed that some people will come to Black women's defense and try to fight the stereotypes, but I rarely see anybody ever coming to Black single mothers' defense. So that's apparently going to be my job, and I have no problem doing that. So what we're going to discuss today is, again, busting the 5 major and, to me, most annoying myths that people tend to have about Black single mothers. And yes, before you get upset and criticize and, try to claim not all or not some, or, this is an anecdote, I do realize that anecdotal experiences do not make empirical generalizations, okay? I'm a statistician, or at least I was trained as one for a very long time. The fact that my story is different and a few select other women's stories are different doesn't mean that the general populace is, completely being misconstrued. But I also don't genuinely believe that we're taking a close enough look at what's going on in the general populace of Black single mothers. And a lot of Black single moms that I've met that I know really don't fit these myths and stereotypes on Black single motherhood at all. And so I just want to come on here to debunk a few of the BS points that I hear being thrown around. So myth number 1 that needs to die in 2019. This is one of the most annoying ones. They're all annoying, but this one is particularly annoying. That we are all from the ghetto. Okay? Now listen, I'm not going to be on here trying to be classist and elitist. Yes, there is a certain echelon of life that I choose to, frolic around in. And that echelon does not necessarily include the ghetto, but that doesn't mean that I'm walking around looking down my nose at women who are from the ghetto, who grew up in the ghetto, and or who still live in the ghetto, okay? We all have different stories. They're all valid. All of our experiences are real. And it's not up to me or anybody else to look down on where somebody comes from and where they are. All that matters is, what are you trying to do to move forward, regardless of where you are. But still, it annoys me that people think I am from the ghetto just because I am a single mom. First of all, I did not grow up in the ghetto. I grew up in the suburbs, actually. And, I'm not talking about, the most expensive suburbs in the land. I'm not saying that. But the suburb I grew up in is pretty decent. It's a pretty nice suburb. It does have its, really weird, rough, sketchy spots. I'm not going to downplay that at all. But for the most part, the suburb I grew up in was pretty cool. At least let's say after the age of 7, where we moved to in a different part of that suburb, was very lovely, very contained. My parents did not have to necessarily worry about me or my siblings as we walked home from school every day. We never had any concerns about being shot up in the streets or whatever while playing outside. That just was never a thing that we had to really worry about. Whereas by contrast, some of my other family members who grew up in Harlem, who grew up in Bed-Stuy, who grew up in the Bronx, they unfortunately had a different experience. But myself, I am not an inner city chick. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But to assume that I am just because I'm a single mom is kind of stupid. Just like assuming if you're looking at a white woman walking down the street and she's alone with the child, you don't automatically necessarily assume that she's trailer trash, unless you're literally walking through a trailer park. Okay, fine, that's fine. But it just really frustrates me that single motherhood, and understandably so, but single motherhood is so tightly intertwined with all of the negative, just base, primal, animalistic qualities of poverty, such that all of us get painted with the same brush. And that's not the case for a lot of us. A lot of us, and again, this is no shade to women who are actually in the ghetto, who live in impoverished areas, no shade. I'm just making a distinction to debunk this myth. A lot of the single mothers that I know actually this is just me, because you have to control sort of like where you go and you control your circle. But a lot of single moms that I know are really intelligent, have advanced degrees, are making over 6 figures. They were either married and got divorced, or married and widowed, or they decided on their own that they wanted children, or they did make the choice to be with somebody that they were not married to, got pregnant and had kids, but were still able to make things work for them. Okay. Again, I realize that that's not the narrative of many or all single moms that are out there. But again, we're not all from the ghetto. Calm down. We're not all, just on welfare, smoking blunts, spending, food stamps and having babies all day. Like, you guys really need to take a step back and develop some critical thinking skills and develop a sense for nuance and for diversity in how you understand the ways in which people live. That's number 1. Myth number 2 that really annoys me is that none of us, not one of us, was ever married to the father of our child or children. Come on, y'all. Really? Y'all are out here. And, this is everybody. I mean, even single moms and single dads have these attitudes towards others who are like them. But whether you're a single parent or you're a childless person, right? Come on. Like, with the divorce rate being at about 50%, and especially the divorce rate in the Black community being at about 70%, are you really out here trying to just point the finger at Black single moms and act like we all done just laid down with Pookie and Ray Ray and were irresponsible and popped out babies for no reason? Y'all really gonna act like a lot of us weren't already married? Come on now. And I speak not just from my own personal experience. I actually was not married, so I can't really, I personally am not helping to debunk the myth. As a side note, he asked me to marry him. We were engaged. Yes, I did wear the ring. I decided not to get married because he turned out not to be the right individual for me. If I wanted to be married, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, I could be married. Okay. He was the second man who had proposed to me. I actually got a third proposal, which was, that's a whole other crazy story. But I got a third proposal this past December that I also turned down from a man that I was seeing. And so, guys, a lot of us ladies, if we wanted to be married, we could be. But even if like we were just completely not even thinking about marriage, a lot of us also were already married when we had our children. So especially if you're dealing with the older Black woman who is a single mother now, she's in her late 30s, her 40s, her 50s. Like, a lot of these women were married and got divorced. So please stop walking around acting like this 50% divorce rate and this 70% divorce rate for the Black community isn't real. Please stop. Okay? Not all of us are just opening our legs for whoever is cute and has swag, and then we just pop out these babies. Y'all need to calm down with that. Myth number 3, that we made bad choices. So a lot of us did make bad choices, but a lot of us didn't. I'm not going to sit here and say that most of us, again, rolled around with Pookie and Ray Ray in the back of his Cadillac and had his baby. I would say that a lot of us made choices, period, just like everybody else did. And they either turned out for the better through our making or through somebody else's making, or they didn't turn out so great. A personal anecdote, and this is a big reason why I'm remaining anonymous so I can talk freely about these things. But my mom, who I love to pieces, was married to her husband, my father, for 18 years before she decided to get divorced and leave his behind for a variety of reasons, that are her business to tell. It's not my business to tell at this point in time, but there were valid reasons for her leaving that marriage. I supported it. I was a teenager when she filed for divorce. I was actually very relieved when she filed for divorce. And my youngest sibling, I believe, was 11 at the time. Okay. And she did everything right. My mother is very educated. She also served in the Air Force as an officer. Okay. She got married before she had children. I am the oldest of all 3 of her children. They were married. Okay, overseas, by the way, because they were both in the military, and they had me. And within their marriage, within a stable environment of having 2 parents, of both of them having gainful employment, being in the military, they had 3 more children. And then, as with many things in life, 18 years later, it just didn't work out. It was no longer working for her. They say that if you don't grow together, you're going to grow apart. And that's exactly what happened. So was she supposed to stick around and stay in a potentially denigrating, destructive, unhealthy marriage with someone that she had grown apart from because you guys are out in these streets acting as though we're all just irresponsible single moms? Was she supposed to be so afraid of your judgment that she was supposed to make that decision to stay in an unhealthy marriage for herself? No, I don't think so. And along with her is an entire class and chorus of other Black married women who are making the decision to walk away from their marriages. Children be damned. I mean, y'all may not like it, but it is what it is. And so that's just another thing. There are many of us, again, I'm not going to downplay the fact that there are a lot of, bad decisions being made. There are a lot of women who are having children and men who are having children out of wedlock. But not all of those choices were made in a bad environment. Not all of those choices were bad choices. Not all of the circumstances behind their choices were crappy, broke, dusty circumstances, So, I'm glad that my mother had me. I love who I am. She obviously really loves who I am too. She loves her other children as well. I love her and who she was when she was married and who she is now that she has divorced my father and has gone on to marry a much better man who I love to pieces. And yeah, not all the choices that we make as single moms or as mothers were bad choices. Y'all need to calm down. And those of you who don't have children, again, I support that. I love that. But please don't act like you, just because you decided not to have kids, that you're not out here making your own crappy decisions in other areas of life. I mean, a lot of my friends are childless, and my life is not perfect, but I can say a whole bunch of things about the choices that they're making in different other aspects of their lives. But because I'm not that kind of person, I don't try to basically judge and drag people. So please stop dragging, y'all. Myth number 4, which gives me the biggest lulls ever. Okay. Myth number 4 is that if you make all the right choices, you won't end up being a single mom. LOL, you are wrong. I just gave you guys a really lengthy example of what happened with my mother and how she made all the right choices, basically all the right choices, and still had to leave that marriage. The only surefire way to guarantee that you will never be a single mother is to never have children. Ever. Don't even try. And I support that. I'm not one of these women who are like, oh, if you don't have children, you're selfish, or, oh, you should try it. No, you shouldn't try it. Stand firm in your childless glory. Go do you. Be selfish, quote unquote. I don't think that that's selfish. I think that's just being self-aware. Go travel like I did. Go open your business like I did. Go do you like I did. Go do you like every other childless person out there is doing them. Go sleep in, go to brunch, go to the club, spend all your money on yourself and your spouse. And if you have nieces and nephews and, other children who are not yours that you want to splurge on a little bit, go do that. If you don't and you just want to do you, boo, please. But please understand, while you're out there doing you, if you want to avoid becoming a single mother, or for those of you who are fathers, if you want to avoid becoming a single father, single parent, the only way to guarantee that is to not have children. You could have the best of all circumstances. You could have gotten your education and your career on point before settling down. You could have chosen a wealthy or really well-off man, because I'm a firm believer in hypergamy. I really love that. I support that. You could choose the good man that could provide. He could be like the perfect man. They don't really exist, but let's say that there is a perfect man and you found him, right? And you guys are perfect together. You could have done that right. You could have had the wedding before you gave up the womb. You could have done that right. And then you finally you get your house together, your career. Everything is in place. Everything is perfect. Your life is perfect. And then your husband gets hit by a bus right after you've had your kids, or 10 years down the line after you guys have kids. Or one of you, God forbid, contracts a terminal illness. Or one of you decides, hey, I like what I'm seeing, in terms of being single right now. I'm going to go to get divorced because I want to go and live my life as a single person. Or, oops, I just fell in bed with a coworker by accident and my husband or wife just found out, etc., etc. Guys, life happens. And what I really need everybody who's downing single mothers out there to do is to really sit back and realize that no matter how much preparation you put into your life, life is going to happen to you in a way that is unexpected. I hope and pray that it's never a negative way for you guys. I really hope that for you. I don't ever want to wish bad for you. I'm not the kind of person who wants bad things to happen to people just so I can say I told you so. That's really wicked and messed up. I'm not that person. But what I do need you guys to realize is that you can try to control your life as much as possible, and you should. You should try to not be like a major control freak, have a little spontaneity in there a little bit. But in terms of planning the big milestones of your life, Plan them, stick to your goals, have standards, make good choices for yourself, but realize that there is a segment of your life that is going to be out of control that you are just going to have to work with and deal with as the punches come. Just be ready to roll with the punches, because I know somebody in my author community who, she's married. She was married to this man who was an author. They had 3 beautiful sons, a great family. He's a very successful author. Unfortunately, literally the day before Thanksgiving, he passed away from, I think it was bone marrow cancer. And now she is a single mother with 3 young sons that she has to raise. Now, do you think that when she said "I do" to this man and she laid down with him and had children with this man, that she was expecting him to die on her not even 14, 15 years later when she has 3 young kids between the ages of like 10 and 15? I don't think so, y'all. So, you really need to understand that even in the best of circumstances, you cannot control certain things. And for you guys to be out here, whether you're a childless person or not, for anybody to be out here downing and ridiculing people with children, single mothers, because of, certain things that they couldn't control, that just shows a lack of critical thinking, compassion, and nuance on your part. That shows also a lack of experience and a lack of maturity. Older people generally tend to understand that life happens, and that's because for them, life has happened. For you younger people who are more critical of those around you, I get it, you're young. And you're also fully in control of your life. You have a sense of immortality, but you guys have to realize, and you will realize, that life will happen to you, and sometimes all you have to do is roll with the punches. But again, if you want to prevent yourself from becoming a single mom, the one thing that you do need to do is go get your tubes tied now. Go, beyond eternal birth control. If you never want to be a mom, I don't even, personally, I just think you should go get your tubes tied personally. Because then you can pretty much guarantee, for the most part, sometimes, y'all be, the doctors be slipping, and, little bundles of joy come tumbling through without expectation. Again, life happening. But for the most part, those tend to be pretty successful. If you don't want to have children, make sure biologically and in your choices that you make that you are not going to have children. That's the only way to assure that you will never become a single mother. And the last myth that I really want to just kick in the forehead right now is that single moms are inherently inferior to childless women. And this is a very subjective thing. Because I don't think that single moms are better than childless women. I don't think that we're really better or worse. We come along with a different set of challenges, and they're not easy. Will I say that childless women to most men are more desirable? Absolutely. Again, we're not going to spin fairy tales on this channel. We're not going to lie and be delusional on this channel. Childless women, for the most part, are more appealing to single childless men, and even sometimes men with children they're more appealing to, because these women don't have the extra responsibilities of taking care of children. They have more money freed up, they have more time freed up for this other potential partner in their lives. They just don't have this very, very different set of circumstances that have to be dealt with. And that is fair. I'm not here to tell anybody that they are required to date Black single moms. That's ridiculous. I'm not here to say to you and lie to you and say that childless people are generally tend to be seen as more desirable and are more valued than people with children. All those things are true. Are you inherently better than we are, though? No, you're not. Sit down and you need to chill out. You need to chill out and relax. It really depends on what you value, though. And I think that's a really important conversation to have, because, for example, if I value a man, because I'm a single mother, whose child actually at this point has 50-50 visitation. So I have a lot of free time on my hands, which is wonderful. But if I were looking like on the job market, on the dating market, I guess I have work on the brain. If I were looking on the dating market for a man that I felt was going to be more mature, more grounded, less selfish, I would probably choose a single father over a childless man. Because especially if they have 50-50 custody with their children, they are used to putting other people ahead of themselves. They are used to being more patient, if they're good dads, being more compassionate, being loving. They obviously have their priorities straight. I mean, a lot of these childless men out here, not hating, but a lot of them are out here just trying to get what they can get. To be really real, a lot of them just want to get what they can get. And, let's be real, as much as Black people want to come down on Black single moms, and how we're not getting married or whatever, a lot of these childless men are not proposing to you childless women either. They are pumping and dumping, they're smashing and dashing, and y'all are being left heartbroken the same way we are, except you guys don't have children, okay? So, and that's fine. I'm not saying you might as well have children. I'm just saying we have a lot of very similar experiences. So in that way, are childless people, childless women inherently more valuable than women with children? I don't believe so. I definitely push back against that, while also recognizing that to certain segments of the population, I'm going to be either more desirable or less desirable. But the reason why I talk about what you value is not only looking at a person's personality, but looking at who they are and their achievements. Like, for example, right? Let's say I have a childless man who is willing to date me, even though I have a child, right? Let's say he doesn't care about that, okay? And I have a choice between this childless man and this man who has a child or children, who's actively involved in their lives. Well, a lot of you would say, well, duh, you would obviously choose the man with the child, right? Because you have a child yourself. But let's say I don't have a child myself, right? Let's say that the man who has a child also is really masculine, which I really like, is very successful in his career, makes quite a bit of money, which I also really like, has his own business and is really driven to grow that business, which I really like. Let's say that he has a lot of really desirable qualities and that we mesh, like if he's artistic, or not that I don't need that, but let's say that he is that. He's artistic, or, he has a love of languages the same way I do. He loves to travel the way that I do. He has a lot of these qualities that, I really enjoy. And let's say the childless man just is kind of like a regular guy. And there's nothing wrong with being a regular guy. I'm not downing that. But let's just say that he is. He's happy with his, job as, I don't know, as like a coach or whatever he's doing. I just picked something out of nowhere. A coach or like a teacher, teaching is great. Just wants to live like a really simple, straightforward life and just do him. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But check this out. Even if I did not have children myself, in this scenario, I would date the guy with the children just off the bat, because he just has more going on in terms of the things that I personally value. I value a man who is hardworking. I value a man who is compassionate and has his priorities in check. I especially value men who are entrepreneurial, because to me, entrepreneurship is equivalent to leaders, and leaders are equivalent to patriarchs. And I really love when a man is really active in his masculinity and basically activating his sense of patriarchy by building and leading. I love that. I'm going to choose that man out of the gate every single time over the childless man who just kind of wants to get by, or just kind of wants to show up to work and come home and play video games, And again, I'm not hating on that guy. I'm just saying my values in particular are what is going to define what I'm looking for and what I consider to be a better fit. So back to my original point, no, childless people are not inherently better than single mothers or people who have children. It's about values, and it's also about your personal drive. You know, a bad bitch is going to be a bad bitch, whether she has one kid, 3 kids, or no kids. Whereas a single person who is lost, who doesn't have any drive, who doesn't have anything that motivates them or that they're passionate about, they're going to be their regular, sort of mundane selves with or without children, So a lot of this sort of hierarchical analysis of who's better, in my opinion, comes down to values. And what I notice is that, sure, people don't generally tend to value children or the presence of children, and I do understand why. At the same time, I will say this, somebody in the community has to be having kids. Otherwise, we're going to die out as a race. It doesn't mean that we should be making ill-advised choices, and having kids in scenarios that don't make any sense. Like, let's not go that far. But children have inherent value in keeping the human race alive. And even if all of us were making good choices, which is great, I would love that to be a thing, Black people will only survive a few generations without having children. If all of us just decided, hey, we're not going to have kids, the population is going to shrink. And we actually see that happening demographically with the white population right now, which is why they are so terrified of the browning of America, which I find interesting and very ironic. And we'll get into that in another episode. But the feminist movement amongst white women has really turned the tides and has really shifted the demographic growth of the white population, such that white people are not even reproducing enough children to replace themselves. So that means there are going to be fewer and fewer white people in the white population as the years draw on. So maybe for some of you, you don't care about the Black population shrinking, and that's totally fine. Maybe you're going to go childless regardless, and you should do that. Do you lead with with yourself and with your self-care? But I do have to say, some of us have to be having kids, or we're going to suffer the same fate as some of the other populations we see in this country and also in the world, i.e. Italy, Japan, etc. So as to who's more valuable, that depends on what you value. And I have expanded my values to my legacy and to communal longevity. So that's basically all I have to say. This was a kind of a long one, but I just needed to get this off of my chest. Okay, I'm kind of dragging this week a little bit, but again, this is all about, for me, empowering, loving, and uplifting Black single mothers, and that includes breaking down these trash myths that are proliferated within the community. And that's all I wanted to do for today. I'm going to be coming back with some more content very soon. Hope you guys are enjoying it. But until then, stay tuned, and I will see you guys on the next broadcast. Okay, bye.